Hello world, Dano here, stacking paper as always, and today we are doing a review of The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle, famously made into a very highly acclaimed animated film that I have not watched, that I'm definitely going to watch now. Um, I'll be honest, this book was not what I was expecting. Um, I'm not sure what I went into this thinking that it was going to be, but it definitely wasn't this. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I was just kind of pleasantly surprised because it is a fairy tale at the end of the day. It's clearly crafted to be enjoyed by both children and adults. But it's also a meta narrative. There's one specific character in here, Shemdrick. I'm kind of fucking up his name, but I think it's Shemdrick. And he seems to be aware of the tropes and trappings of fairy tales. Like, he talks about the happy ending and, like, you know, the princess that needs saving and, like, the things that heroes do and all this stuff. And it was just, I just wasn't expecting that, really. The unicorn herself seems to warp reality around her. There's a line in here, and actually, this was our book club read, so my buddy in the book club made a really good point of this, and that the unicorn seems to be the only real thing, and everyone else is kind of just like playing a role. There's a moment in this book where the unicorn's captured and by like this traveling circus, and she makes a point that her and this harpy are real and everything else is fake. And it's kind of just saying how, on the surface, the other attractions in this circus are just illusions, but the unicorn and this harpy represent like real magic. And then the harpy gets free and fucking just desolates this circus. That scene was really cool. And I will say, like, some of the action is it's very limited. There's not that much of it, but it's very like almost Dragon Ball Z like in the sense that they're like flashing around. Like, the main antagonist is this bull, but it's not a real bull. It's like this mystical bull, kind of in the same way that this unicorn is a mystical animal. And in their first encounter, it's like the bull is like instant transmissioning, you know, everywhere, and the way that it moves like lightning and like all that stuff is really well described and cool. And the prose in general is very good. It's very flowery, a lot of metaphor, constant metaphor. And I will say, in the beginning of the book, it's actually like a little too much. He's really laying it on thick. But he tapers off, you know, which is nice, because it can be a little too much when they're just throwing metaphors like every 5 sentences. It's like, okay, man, let's move the story along. And but there's a lot of funny little moments outside of like the main plot, like especially when it comes to animals and the unicorn's interaction with other animals. There's like this scene of these 2 birds who are kind of having like a domestic quarrel. And it's funny. Like, this book does have like some really funny moments, but in general the vibe is a lot more somber, especially by the end, because the unicorn gets transformed into a human unwittingly, because Shemdrick is this magician who really doesn't have any real magic except sometimes. You know, he has Deus Ex Machina magic. And that's fine. For a story like this, that's fine. Usually I kind of hate that stuff. But it's perfectly serviceable for this story. And so the unicorn becomes a human, and before she became a human, she has this like aloofness about her. How she's kind of aware that she's above all these other creatures. Not in like a pretentious way, but just like she knows who she is. She knows what she means to this world. And how did I not even explain like the whole premise? The premise is the unicorn is on the search for others of her kind, but as she's walking around, she realizes she's the only one left, and discovers that the other unicorns have been trapped by this king who has this bull, hence the bullfighting. kind of fucked up the chronology on this review, but it's okay. But anywho, so she becomes this human, and she still kind of holds on to that aloofness, even when she gets to this castle, meets the king, meets the son, who's instantly falls in love with her, obviously. And she wants nothing to do with him. But as time passes, she kind of forgets who she is. She forgets her purpose, like why she even went on this trip in the first place. Meanwhile, she starts kind of getting closer to this guy, and she's becoming human, but that's looked at as like a bad thing because she's losing, who she is. And there's some good comedy in this scene where like this dude is just such a simp for her that he's going out and being a hero. He's like slaying dragons and fighting monsters and all this stuff. And the book doesn't show you any of that. That's all off screen. But he's kind of getting frustrated. He's like, man, I thought princesses and like fair maidens love this shit. Why isn't this working? Again, it's calling back to the tropes of fantasy, right? But it's because she's not a human. She's beyond all that. She's this mystical creature trapped in this human body. And even I will say that the scene where they initially get to the castle and they meet like a real magician, like Schmendrick he's kind of a fake, but he tutored under a real magician. So that's why he gets, for like fleeting moments, he becomes like the most powerful magician ever, right? At the moment where he has to turn the unicorn into a woman, and then at the end when the reverse has to happen. But other than that, he's fucking useless. He's just like a 2-bit, backstreet magician, essentially. But when the real magician shows up, and the king kicks him out of his court, he's about to cast some crazy spell, right? And then the unicorn, now in human form, still has like a bit of the magic power and just kind of counter spells him. Like, it's very like butter soft magic, but stuff like that like is really cool in the context of the story. But overall, especially like once it starts getting to the end and you see that the unicorn as a human is actually ends up reaching out and kind of opening herself up to this guy, very physically and mentally, I should say, because she doesn't let anyone touch her. Like, that's a big thing. Like, the unicorn is, again, separate. She's above all this. But she reaches out her hand to him, and then that's obviously the moment where she has to be turned back into a unicorn. So, defeats the bull, frees all her people. But by the end of the book, it's very somber. It's very bittersweet because now the unicorn isn't what she once was. She's not aloof because she kind of fell in love as a human. And then that got ripped away from her at the last second. So now she feels something she's never felt before, which is regret. And that's where, even when she initially got turned into a human, Molly, one of the other girl that's in their traveling group, is like, I can't believe you've done this. You've done something terrible to this unicorn because, like, you've tainted her. You've given her this kind of, like, it's almost like he gave her original sin in a way. And, like, the unicorn was pure before that, but now, being dragged down into our very human, like, problems, it's tainted her spirit in a way. But I will say it's a very beautiful book. I initially scored it at 8.5. I think I'm just going to keep it at an 8. I think that's fair because it's still a very good book, but it does have issues here and there. Like, I will say, after they get to the castle, there's like a pretty long stretch where like a whole lot of nothing happens. For a pretty short book to have that much of a lull kind of sucked. But and how can I forget the conversation with the skull? Like, that's what I mean. There's all these like really good like moments, and they're kind of strung together pretty tightly. It's really just here and there. I think the pacing maybe drops off, but yeah, they have this conversation with this skull of this dead guy, and they're trying to find the layer where the bull is to defeat it, right? And it's a very comedic conversation, but kind of dark too. It rests a lot on morality and what it means to have like human desires. It's really good. This book is absolutely worth your read. I will say I think it's better if you have experience with other fantasy, because there's a lot of like tropes that it's clearly making fun of in a way. But yeah, just solid overall. Good first book club read for the year, I'll say. What am I reading now? So I kind of pivoted on my current read. So the next book club read, which we're reading now, is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Super excited for that. I've been waiting to read this book for years, and it's definitely got a good start. But other than that, I decided to reread The Hedge Knight and subsequently The Sworn Sword and The Mystery Knight, which is the Dunk and Egg Tales, because the HBO show just came out, and I'm like, you know what? I want to see how accurate it is and how it's following it. By the way, it's doing a fantastic job. I can't recommend that enough. But yeah, I'm just gonna blitz through Dunk and Egg because it is. As much as it pains me that Song of Ice and Fire will never be finished, it's nice that I can enjoy these smaller, more wholesome stories that still take place in that world. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Those are going to be fun. But until then, take it easy.